we've talked a lot about this in between media this season. There's going to be curveballs coming your way.
Hate's a strong word. I dislike Kirk Cousins more than probably any other quarterback in the league.
I get a little bit of that rookie-itis,
I would have said, I would love some of what you're smoking.
Even though I'm straight, I'm still stuck between an interpretation, what it all means. Can I make a difference for something different? My mind in prison, then I saw the vision. Played the field, it's no competition. Found success through the repetition. If it's impossible, stick to the mission. I'm just cruising through on my way to get it. I found myself somewhere in between. Yeah, I found myself somewhere in between. Found myself somewhere in between. Yeah, I found myself somewhere in between. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
So one thing that really sets us apart here is we're not afraid to talk about other things that maybe aren't super fantasy related.
Do what you can to become a better person, to become a better human.
All right, people of the planet of Earth. Welcome back to a very special edition of the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast. It is Tuesday, November 2nd, week 8 of the fantasy football season, the official, non-official halfway point in the season. Today, guys, we're going to give out our mid-season awards. We're going to break down all the fantasy football news that came in over the Halloween weekend. As always, Seth Woolcock here to get you through the day, joined by my brother from another mother, Nathan Polvote, and his beautiful wife, Jen Polvote, keeping it cool out there in Colorado. Guys, how was the Halloween weekend for you?
It was great.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was busy. It was jam-packed. I mean, we had Halloween going on Friday night, and then a kid's birthday party Saturday night, and then actual Halloween Sunday. So it was jam-packed.
Yeah, it was fun. It made me remember why I used to love this holiday when I was a kid, which I wrote about this week in my column.
Out now.
Yep, out now. Check it out. Selfless plug. Here we go. Shameless plug. Selfless, shameless, whatever. Definitely not selfless. Definitely shameless. Yeah, it was fun, man. How was yours, Seth?
Dude, I mean, it was as good as it can be when you're 23, living in a college town. Katie and I found ourselves down at the local pub about like 2 a.m. closing time and sang some Tim McGraw, Live Like You Were Dying out loud. So, I mean, it was good, man. I cannot complain. We definitely got awakened to quite a bit of fantasy football news on Sunday morning as well, though.
Yep.
Yes.
Guys, we're going to break it all down tonight from the Calvin Ridley news to the Derrick Henry news. Everything we're going to touch on. We're also going to be giving out our mid-season awards. Super happy to have that back on the show. As always, we'll round it out some sure things, sleepers of the week. If you do have any questions, comments for us, myself and my two hosts, please head over to our YouTube page, In Between Media, and you can go ahead and drop those. We'll answer any questions you have, week 8 or moving forward related. Guys, if you want to catch this show on repeat, you know where to find it. It's on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeart, wherever you guys are getting your podcasts, you can find it. If you want to follow the site, the show, everything we have going on over here at IBT Media, that's on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, you guys name it. Guys, I want to go ahead and get into it with our first segment, Front and Center. Front and Center is a new segment here on In Between Media. And it is presented by the lovely people over at Monkey Knife Fight once again. And Monkey Knife Fight, guys, if you haven't heard of it yet, it is really DFS for the casual player. It's home of the famous More or Less games. And we've become very fond of these at In Between Media. We preview them every week on our DFS Tailgate show. This is where you can stack several More or Less games together. You can get a nice bonus. Monkey Knife Fight, they have football, golf, UFC, and NASCAR. All of which we have content here at In Between Media. We actually have the championship race coming up this week as well for NASCAR. So if you guys want to get in on any of the action going in here at Monkey Knife Fight, make sure you use the promo code IBT. They're going to match your first deposit up to $100. And guys, usually, as we get into each of our segments here, we usually do have a drop for that. This week, we do not have a drop for Front and Center, and that's because I specifically came up with it last night. And, there was really no good way to pivot to the Calvin Ridley news. I felt like we normally try to break down the fantasy football news and headline hijinks, which is more of a fun way of looking at fantasy football and all the craziness that happens with it. But I really just kind of wanted to take a moment and spotlight what Calvin Ridley did and, the courage that came with that. Obviously, if you guys didn't know by now, Calvin Ridley is stepping away from football for right now due to personal reasons resulting or lingering from his mental health. So, Nate, I kind of wanted to turn it over to you and Jen here. What are your guys' thoughts here on Calvin Ridley and mental health once again in 2021 really coming into the forefront, which is just great to see?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was brave. I commend him for it. I mean, and obviously we don't know exactly what he's dealing with, but if you think about it from a perspective of, okay, I can continue to make all this money, or I can maybe continue to live, football is not more important than your mental health, your physical health. So, I think it was it had to be. It was the right decision for him.
I agree, obviously. What I keep thinking about in this scenario and what happened and things I've seen on social media about it, where people are like, well, he gave up on his team. He couldn't just power through. There are worse things in life.
That's not how mental health works.
It's not how mental health works at all. You can't be right for everyone else around you if you aren't right for yourself. Mm-hmm. That's a hard lesson I had to learn in my life, that if I didn't love myself and I didn't believe in myself, I was no good to anyone around me. Mm-hmm. My wife, my company, my work, my son, my family. He has to do what he has to do. And people keep talking about the privilege of he gets to just walk away because he's made so much money. But if he has if he has the ability to do this, and he's a very impactful person, athletes are people that children look up to and adults look up to, and they set examples in communities. And if he's not right for himself, he needs to get out there and get himself right, step away from the game. Hopefully he can come back at some point and be great, be a positive member of the community, but he needs to take time for himself. And it's a beautiful thing that he was able to do this.
Yeah, he worked hard, and he earned the right to walk away whenever he wanted to. This was the time. I mean, he's been out, minus last week, he was out 5 and 5 on 6 or something like that. But yeah, he earned this for himself to be able to walk away.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, I think a lot of times with fantasy football guys, we tend to think of injuries as something physical and something we can see. Mm-hmm. And with mental health, it's something we can't really see. And, I think it goes to a personal level too. You never know what someone's going through. So hats off to Calvin Ridley and what he did. We hope he, comes back soon, but not too soon, and takes the time for himself and really gets right. We're excited to have him back. Got a comment here from Brad Bull on YouTube. If you were hypothetically in an IDP league with Jen and Nate, what would you give up for Joe Mixon? Well,
okay, he's the king of trades. First of all, for anyone who isn't in a league with Brad, he concocts the craziest trade proposals, like the absolute craziest. Like, I think he and I went back and forth like 6 times a couple weeks ago over CMC and Chuba.
Right.
And who was it? I don't even remember who else he wanted. But I ended up having to drop 5 players because I accepted the proposal, but it included picks. It was crazy.
It was a wild trade. I remember looking at that. What would we give up for Joe Mixon? I would give up. Oof.
You're going to have to sweeten that pot pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Mixon's been fire.
Mm-hmm.
Hypothetically.
I think we can definitely probably we're more of a redraft show right here. So I think right now, like Joe Mixon's definitely a top 12 back. So you need to give up something of value at that. For Dynasty, I guess it's more of your opinion on what you think of the Bengals and Joe Mixon long term, but definitely a lot, I would say, conclusively.
Yeah.
There was definitely no good way to pivot from the Calvin Ridley personal side to the fantasy football side. So I appreciate Brad giving us a hand in there and pivoting back to fantasy football. Guys, what is your opinion here with Calvin Ridley and how we're going to move forward with our fantasy rosters? I personally am a little worried about rookie tight end Kyle Pitts. We saw him for the first time get shadowed by Stephon Gilmore this past weekend, and he was shut down facing a real NFL cornerback. Next up for him, he has New Orleans, Dallas, New England. I think I'm worried about Kyle Pitts. I'm worried about Matt Ryan. I don't want any of these Jags as far as Tajay Sharp, Russell Gage. I'm good on those guys. Do you guys see any light at the end of the tunnel here for the Falcons, or am I just like doomsday look out? Because I mean, Calvin was such a big part of this.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say Russell Gage and Kyle Pitts are more relevant, I think. I think that you're not giving Pitts enough credit with reason and understandably. But, I mean, both of those guys are going to have to do better.
Well, Pitts is a beast.
Yeah.
And it was his first week having to get matched up with an actual cornerback of that caliber and Stephon Gilmore. He's got Marcus Lattimore this week, and you can imagine Marcus Lattimore is probably going to be shadowing Pitts.
Yeah.
But this is an opportunity for Pitts to learn and to get better, and he's going to do it quickly because he's a smart football player, which is why he was the 4th pick in the draft as a tight end who's not actually a tight end. He's actually the reincarnation of Calvin Johnson, if we're being honest. He's going to figure it out. So my worry is maybe next week against New Orleans, he doesn't look so hot if he's got Gilmore, but past that, he's going to figure it out because he's a wide receiver and he will figure it out. I'm not worried.
I am a little worried, Nate, but I think you kind of hit the nail with the hammer there, because I think at the end of the day, we have to start treating Kyle Pitts as a wide receiver. And when we're looking at his matchups, like I'm not looking at points against fantasy tight ends for Kyle Pitts moving forward. It's wide receivers. I think this does, on the other hand, it should elevate Cordell Patterson and Mike Davis both, because they're going to need them. Patterson's probably going to play a little more in the slot, maybe even out wide a little bit. So we could see him and Mike Davis more on the field at simultaneously times. So I guess we'll just brave forward, guys. Would you say you're probably not in a 1 quarterback league? You're not trying to start Matt Ryan anytime soon?
Absolutely not. Dude should have retired.
Okay, but we say that, but every single week he's putting up the numbers. So you can't.
Then he faced a mediocre Carolina defense. I mean, to be fair, with Stephon Gilmore and Jeremy Chin, their corners are good.
This was last week, right? This was
this past week, and they
Did
lost.
You see his hand? He got.
Oh, I mean, he's a trooper. Don't get me wrong, but that doesn't make him a fantasy valuable quarterback.
I don't think he's fantasy valuable. I think that he has.
In a 1 QB league, I would say you're correct.
Yeah.
In Superflex, different story.
Yeah, in Superflex, you got to find what you can get. But yeah. So, guys, it's maybe a little bit of a downgrade for Kyle Pitts. Nate and Jen are holding out hopes for him still. We'll see what happens with him. The running backs get a boost. Other than that, stay away from this Atlanta Falcons attack.
Yeah.
We are in a league together, buddy.
The other big news, guys, over the weekend and didn't really filter in until Monday morning. First of all, I want to precurse this with what a wacky year this has been for the running back position. Like, there's always injuries at the position, but I mean, if there was ever a time, I've never been a zero RB guy, could never stomach it. But I mean, I'm just going to read through the names of running backs who've missed some chunk of the season, if not all of it. And like, just to give you guys a little bit of scope of what we're talking about here. Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, CMC, Saquon Barkley, Chris Carson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, James Robinson, Travis Etienne, David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, James White, Raheem Mostert, and Dalvin Cook has been in and out of the lineup at times. And that's not even mentioning Antonio Gibson, who has, some type of shin injury that's not getting looked at in Washington. So, guys, that's 20-plus running backs, like starting running backs. So, like, if you have a running back right now who you started the season with, like, I'm just thankful that they're still not injured.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's Rojo, because he's not injured and not doing
okay,
anything.
Well, he's not a starting running back, though. But, yeah.
He was to start the season.
That is true. He
might as well be hurt at this point.
It's just crazy, though. Like, is there any, like, actionable advice you can say other than, like, grab your handcuffs to the guys that are still out there? The Alvin Kamaros, make sure you have Mark Ingram. Make sure you have the A.J. Dillon to your Aaron Jones. I don't think there's a Chargers back out there rostering for Austin Eckler or Najee Harris in Pittsburgh. But when there is a handcuff that has some value, I think it's worth rostering now.
It is.
100%.
The way these injuries have popped up, it's just wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the latest one of them, guys, Derrick Henry, he's going to be out anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks. It looks like it's going to be on the longer side as well. That was the bombshell yesterday. Hopefully you were able to get in there and maybe pick up Adrian Peterson before he was signed officially. I was able to do that in a couple of leagues, so it was definitely beneficial. But right now we have 36-year-old Adrian Peterson who signed with the team yesterday, was out of a job this season until this injury. And we also have Jeremy McNichols as well, the scat back for the Tennessee Titans as well. Are either of these guys worth a look, Nate, starting with you? Do you have any confidence in Adrian Peterson or McNichols trying to at least supplement some fantasy value that Derrick Henry had?
So the way I'm looking at this backfield, I feel, is it's going to be a 65-35 split between Peterson on the 65% side, McNichols on the 35% side. This team has to run the ball to win, plain and simple, because they're getting teams to load the box against a running attack with Derrick Henry, which is opening up A.J. Brown and Julio Jones to what's basically been a mediocre Ryan Tannehill. So if they can't continue up that dominance in the run game, they're going to start to just get destroyed because teams can sit on A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, and it's over. It's over. You can forget about it. I think that Adrian Peterson has had half of a season off in addition to an off season. He had a decent season in Washington last year with Antonio Gibson.
2 years ago. 2
years ago. And then he was decent in Detroit last year. This could be like one of those weird things like when Roger Clemens would sit out for the first half of the season and then sign with the Yankees for the second half.
Yeah.
Lights out for half a season. I think Peterson can go lights out for half a season.
Well, and I think the passion is there too. He's passionate.
Great locker room guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
He wants to be playing football still. He still says he has gas in the tank. So if he says that, I believe him. I mean, he's no Derrick Henry, but
no,
not even close. But
I mean, nobody is Derrick Henry, but let's be honest. The closest thing we've seen to Derrick Henry, maybe in the last 15 years, is Adrian Peterson, a guy who can run between the tackles, break long runs. And he's not bad in the pass catching game either. He's better than he gets credit for. Last year, just for reference, guys, 604 yards and 7 touchdowns, for the Detroit Lions. That was with DeAndre Swift, who was, continuing to build all season. So I definitely think there's some merit here. Okay, I want to present a situation because I'm in an interesting one, and maybe this can help some other people out there too. So I'm in a situation right now. I was able to pick him up in my home league, which super competitive league called the Keg, Kane's Extraordinary Gentleman. And my brother has Derrick Henry. My older brother has Derrick Henry. I picked up Adrian Peterson. Today I've been getting trades for like Tyler Boyd and a couple like other small pieces that I don't really find super valuable. Like, what would you suggest for someone who maybe already has Adrian Peterson? Like, should you be holding him and wait to see what you have, or should you shop him for a piece like a Tyler Boyd or something, maybe a little more?
So in redraft, if you have Adrian Peterson, it's because you just picked him up, because there was no way you were wasting a roster spot on him.
Yeah.
And if you did pick him up, you probably need him.
Or you're picking him up for trade bait if you've got.
Or you're picking him up for trade bait. So then in that case, find the person who's running back needy and get whatever you need from them. I'm talking wide receiver 2, probably like a low end wide receiver 2.
But you think like Tyler Boyd's probably lowballing me probably a little bit. He's more of a wide receiver 3 flex play.
I take T. Higgins.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I take T. Higgins.
I mean,
so it's like a low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3. Maybe like a substantial tight end, maybe like a Dalton Schultz or someone like that.
Yep. Yeah, Dalton Schultz would be a good take for it. Yeah.
Okay. I think, and as far as for people who need to go out and get Adrian Peterson tonight or tomorrow, obviously I think if I have the number 1 waiver claim in a redraft league, priority wise, I'm probably spending that. Are you guys comfortable with that as well?
It depends on how needy you are.
Okay.
I mean,
yes,
I'm not really I'm in a position in one league where Adrian Peterson would be helpful because I have Derrick Henry, and it's actually a co-managed league with Jen and I. If you need a running back, spend that high priority, but don't do that thinking that, I'm going to trade, because you might not have anybody in your league who actually wants to make that deal. This is one of those know your league things, I think.
I think that's great advice. I think it's very situational.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, find that Derrick Henry owner and make some type of deal.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, guys, I appreciate you trying to make the best of a pretty poor situation we have there in Tennessee. With all this being said, we do have one question coming in from the audience. We'll go ahead and answer that before we get to our midseason awards. From Shane Barrett here on YouTube, guys, in Superflex, what would you trade Matt Ryan for?
Literally anything you'll give me.
I mean, okay, like let's out. I mean, if you need another quarterback, like what's another quarterback? Like I'd probably take maybe Daniel Jones or like Justin Fields at this point over him. Would you guys take either of those guys?
I would
over
take
Matt
both
Ryan?
of those. Yeah, I would take.
I'd take
those
both.
guys.
Rushing upside,
especially Fields. I mean, if he can continue what he did last week, yeah.
I would also probably say in a super flex league, like, I mean, quarterbacks are always valuable, so you can always exchange those for running backs. No matter, running backs are thin too, but if you can get yourself like, maybe a serviceable running back and a low end wide receiver, maybe like a Michael Carter or something like that. And then, I mean, obviously you probably don't want to buy Michael Carter high, but maybe someone who's a little like lower right now, but get yourself a serviceable RB, maybe like a flex wide receiver. But I mean, go after Taysom Hill is my thing. Go after Taysom Hill, and then you can definitely try to trade Matt Ryan, so you have a more secure QB2 there, I think, for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I don't hate that.
And any other thoughts for Mr. Barrett here, guys?
No.
No.
I loved that.
All right, then I would like to move forward to our midseason awards, once again presented by Underdog Fantasy. Guys, if you have not heard about Underdog Fantasy, Nate and I, Jen and I, everyone at In Between Media, I don't want to say we're addicted, but we're borderline addicted. It really just is the new way to play fantasy football. How about it, Nate?
Yeah, dude, it's pretty awesome, pretty intense. The thing that's great about Underdog is that they're pretty much they're pretty low dollar contests for the most part, unless you want to get fancy with it. But you've got your prop pick parlays that you can run for not just the NFL. They have Major League Baseball, which is coming to a close here, but NBA, NHL, fun ways to play. And you can win 20 times what you put in if you stack 5 and get them all right.
Yes,
then
sir.
We've got 2, 4, and 6 man single week contests, where you get to play against 2, 4, 6 other people. It's a very quick draft, 30-second clock, and then you can walk away. And I've been getting into some of the larger contests. I won $10 last weekend.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. I never win at DFS and I won $10. They're super easy contests. Yeah. It's so much fun. It's addicting. You need to get into it. Use the promo code IBT
and that was with Gronk. You had Gronk in too.
I had Gronk and he got me 0 points and I still won $10.
Awesome.
So guys, get in the game.
Yep.
Promo code IBT. They will match your deposit up to $100, 100%. That's an amazing deal. It's an instant match. Get in there, get playing. It's fun. Look out for some in-between sponsored contests coming up this weekend.
Oh, yes. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into our mid-season awards.
Welcome to the In Between Media Mid-Season Awards.
Categories are
Fantasy MVP, Biggest Disappointment, Biggest Surprise, Comeback Fantasy Player, and Breakout Player Here to Stay.
All right, quick shout out to our guy Third and Short, makes all the videos happen here In Between Media, and our audio editor in the back end, Kyle Scott, as well. Guys, I want to start. I think there's no other better place to start than the fantasy MVP through the first 8 weeks. And obviously things have changed a little bit in the last week with one of our MVP candidates going down. But before we discuss and battle it out with who we think should be the fantasy football MVP through week 8. Let's go ahead and introduce the nominees.
Here are the nominations for Fantasy MVP. Cooper Kupp, Derrick Henry, Jamar Chase, and Tom Brady.
All right, guys. Obviously, Cooper Kupp here coming in. He's a very favorable candidate, I think. He's been a wide receiver 1 in 6 of 8 weeks. Derrick Henry has also been an RB1 up to this point, the RB1 by more than 40 points. So definitely some validation there, even though we might not see him in the second half of the season. Jamar Chase, the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, depending on your scoring, was drafted very late in the offseason after all the drop rumors came out and, a lot of preseason negative buzz towards him. And then Tom Brady, guys, the QB1, drafted as the ADP QB9. So he's definitely made up value there. He's been very solid all season long. Guys, who is your vote for fantasy MVP, starting with Jen?
Oh, Cooper Kupp, hands down. He has 924 yards and 10 touchdowns just in the first 8 games. Like, this is a no-brainer for me.
It's crazy because he had 3 all last season.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he's leading the league in targets, and I mean, he leads all fantasy players in points right now. Like, he's scoring more than quarterbacks. I'm definitely with you, Jen. I think it's Cooper Kupp here. I don't think there's really any debate. Where you got him was in the 4th or 5th round for a guy who's literally, I've seen teams that don't have much on their teams and are just being carried like 7-0, 6-1 because of Cooper Kupp. So I'm on Cooper Kupp. Nate, do you digress at all here?
Absolutely not. He has more fantasy points this season already than he had in 2020.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
All right, Well, guys, I think it is unanimous here. Fantasy football MVP midseason award goes to our guy, Cooper Kupp, out there in Los Angeles. Keep being awesome, Cooper Kupp. We appreciate everything you're doing for our squads. Moving forward here, guys, I would like to talk about the biggest disappointment. This is kind of honestly the un-MVP, if you would, the players who we drafted who've burned our teams. Let's go ahead and introduce the nominees for the biggest disappointment.
Here are the nominations for biggest disappointment. Christian McCaffrey, Allen Robinson, Antonio Gibson, and Darren Waller.
All right, guys, you heard it there. Big, highly touted players here. Christian McCaffrey, obviously the 101, has played just a couple of games here. A waste of a first-round pick. Carolina overused him, and once again, we see what's happened. I think we talked about it when he went out. Did he go on? Was it week 2 that he went out with the injury, or was it week 3? I think it was week 3, right?
Week 3.
Well, I remember talking, before that waiver wire show, and I was saying that I was okay with spending a lot of fab on Chuba Hubbard or using that number 1 claim because I was worried that something like this could happen. And once again, this really isn't all on Christian McCaffrey to me. This is also just on the Panthers organization for just being butt and managing injuries. But, I mean, obviously you drafted him thinking he was going to be an RB1, if not the RB1. Been nothing close to it. Hopefully you have Chuba Hubbard. But I know I'm in a couple leagues with Christian McCaffrey. I've no Hubbard. So I've been just stranded. Allen Robinson, guys, wide receiver 60 right now. I mean, he has gone over double digits one time, week 2, when he had a touchdown on 2 receptions. Just been a complete, and he's been a landmine. There have been times where you thought you could start him, and you absolutely could not start him. He's wide receiver 60, not 16, 60, behind Cedric Wilson, Randall Cobb, and right above, 1 point above Quez Watkins, rookie Quez Watkins for the Eagles. Probably casual fans might not know who he is, but
they would if they read my column 2 weeks ago.
There you go. Friday Night Insights by Jen Pulvote. Little bit of a plug there. Guys, the last 2 nominees, as we announced them, Antonio Gibson, RB18, has not looked great. 3 straight weeks below 10 PPR points. We were super high on him here in Between Media. I know a lot of guys in our community, our guy Rumboy Robbie was touting him all offseason. And it kind of a similar situation here in Washington. I mean, I've heard reports that their training staff is just not NFL level right now. And that I think that has something to do with what's going on with Antonio Gibson. He doesn't look right. We saw a lot of Jared Patterson here in week 8. And then Jen, your guy, Darren Waller, man. I mean, he was one of your all-in picks coming into the season, and right now he's tight end 8, only 6 games played, but still.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a major disappointment. He was tight end 3, and now he has fallen. And I don't know. I mean, when will he potentially be back? Do we know?
Should be this week.
Is it this week?
Yeah. It sounds like it'll be this week.
Okay, well, let's hope so that he can redeem himself. I mean, obviously, terrible news coming out of Las Vegas today, but I don't know what that's going to do to the locker room, what that's going to do to the team. But yeah, Darren Waller is a player who he was my all-in. I mean, my biggest disappointment is Christian McCaffrey, but Darren Waller, oof, man, it's been sad.
I think I'd probably have to go with Allen Robinson here as my biggest disappointment, just because like at least Christian McCaffrey and like Antonio Gibson, you can kind of blame the teams a little bit. Like Allen Robinson, this is like he's on the franchise tag. It's still a contract year for him. I mean, we can kind of, I guess, blame Matt Nagy a little bit because that's always fun to do. But I mean, overall though, I had Allen Robinson in a couple leagues, and I was playing him like just hoping like same thing with Robert Woods at the beginning of the year, like hoping like, okay, there's a turnaround coming. He's gonna have a good game. I played him 5 out of the first 6 weeks. I fired him up in week 7 again because it was the Tampa Bay Bucks who had 6-string corners out there, and just again he landmined my team. I mean, I eventually traded him this week. There was no high to even trade him on, so I think that's why I go. I mean. He's my We Are guy. You know what I mean? Penn State, Nate. Where are you at on this conversation of biggest disappointment?
So it's Allen Robinson for me. I really – part of that's on me for drafting him as high as I did because I really believed in Justin Fields, and I still do. But the offensive scheme has been trash, and Allen Robinson just simply isn't getting open. He isn't getting the looks. Justin Fields doesn't have time to find him. He's not a focal point, which is crazy for a guy on the franchise tag. Like you would assume this dude would be a focal point in this offense, but he hasn't been. The Bears just like it's a dumpster fire outside of David Montgomery as long as Matt Nagy's on the sideline. But even when Matt Nagy isn't on the sideline, as we saw this past weekend, Allen Robinson still isn't a thing. So expectation versus what's actually happened. Allen Robinson isn't startable. He's borderline droppable.
Oh, yeah.
None of the other 3 guys on this list are even remotely that bad. I mean, you're not going to drop Darren Waller. You're not going to drop Antonio Gibson as much as you might want to, because I'm on board with him being super disappointing as well, especially given his ADP. In CMC, you're hoping that something else happens. With Allen Robinson, it's like he's dead weight in Chicago and on your fantasy rosters.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a name at this point. It reminds me a lot of his 2016, 2017 season. I think it was either his last season in Jacksonville there, or at least maybe the last season before he got hurt. But he was super disappointing. He was a landmine that season, 2 drafted in the top 3 rounds and just disappointed. So hopefully you can get him off your rosters, but I think it's pretty inconclusive here, guys. The overall fantasy biggest disappointment so far in 2021 is none other than Penn State's own Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, guys, let's move off the negative. Let's move to something positive here because there's a lot of positive to celebrate. And let's go ahead and introduce the nominees for the biggest surprise of the 2021 fantasy football season through the first 8 weeks.
Here are the nominations for biggest surprise: Elijah Mitchell, Deebo Samuel, Cordero Patterson, and Joe Burrow.
All right, guys. So this one's a super fun category, I think, because these are players we did not see coming. Starting with Elijah Mitchell, I will say we did highlight him right before the draft, actually. One of our draft episode specials is, as I think he was a Scott Shorthing sleeper of the week for someone who could go in a good situation. Obviously, he went late in the draft to the San Francisco 49ers behind Trey Sermon. He was, kind of buried in the roster to guys like Wayne Gallman, who ended up getting cut from the team, and Raheem Mostert. But Elijah Mitchell, he's made the most of his opportunity on the same team. Deebo Samuel, guy a lot of people kind of wrote off after multiple injuries last season, was really kind of worthless in fantasy football in 2020. Bounces back. Right now, he's a wide receiver 3 on a points per game basis. And how about Cordell Patterson as well? He's basically a free running back 1. He's the PPR RB8 right now. And just as we already highlighted, he's probably going to be even more valuable in the back half of the season. And the last one here, which I think is really just a kind of a feel-good story, and we love that here in Between Media. We're all about feel-good. Joe Burrow bounces back so quickly from that ACL, guys, has looked phenomenal. QB8 on the season right now. Jen, starting with you, who's been your biggest surprise this season out of these candidates?
Probably Elijah Mitchell. I mean, we hated on him big time. I mean, Nate and I did. I'll just but man, I mean, he's really blown up. He has 433 yards and 3 touchdowns. And when he's utilized, he's a machine. He's had 3 100-yard plus games in the last 5 games. Like, that's amazing. And I love Joe Burrow. So it was kind of a tie for me there between Elijah Mitchell and Joe Burrow, but I had to give it to Elijah.
Yeah, Elijah Mitchell, I didn't see this coming mostly. And the reason I hated on him was not from a talent perspective. It was because of Kyle Shanahan and how he's managed that backfield between Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, Jermichael Hasty, Raheem Mostert. They had Wayne Gallman. Like, it just seemed like a Texans type mess in that backfield. And then you got Jeff Wilson getting ready to come off the PUP list and practice this week. So Elijah Mitchell, surprising. Joe Burrow is not surprising to me. I wasn't surprised. This is exactly what I expected of Joe Burrow this season. I would have been disappointed if we had not seen this from him. But Cordell Patterson has to be the most surprising. This is a guy he's in his 9th year in the league. He was drafted to be a Percy Harvin type player, stealing words from our good friend of the show, Jeff Bell. But he was drafted with that idea in Minnesota, and it never panned out. It didn't pan out. And now here we are. We're seeing him do it. And man, like, he has saved Atlanta in so many situations this season.
Yeah.
Dude, if they didn't have Cordell Patterson, what's their record?
1-7. I mean,
0-8.
It's
could be 0-8.
They could have a big offer without him.
Did you see his touchdown this weekend was just phenomenal? He's just bulldozing guys, and I mean, no, I definitely agree. He has been surprising. The reason I couldn't vote for either Mitchell or Patterson is because preseason I kind of like both these guys a little bit. Like, I definitely saw at like an RB2 hole there in Atlanta. I didn't think he would become the RB1 by any means, but what really kind of scared me off of Cordell Patterson, it sounds so dumb to think of it, but like I had him I think RB45 in our initial redraft PPR rankings in the draft guide, but he got buried once Wayne Gallman came into the picture in Atlanta, because I'm a huge Wayne Gallman guy, so I was kind of out on Patterson at that point, and it sucked because like you missed out on a guy who was at the end of your benches if you drafted him at all. If not, you picked him up after week 1 or 2, and he's just been an absolute stud since. My vote did go to Deebo Samuel, just because personally that's one I did not see coming. I like Deebo. He was floating around kind of in some late drafts, like Scott Fishbowl. He was just on the board forever. And I was like, man, I want to get Deebo, and like I just never did. I never got him in any leagues. I had him a couple leagues last year, and he was kind of like just a dud because of the injuries. But I mean, no one saw the collapse of Brandon Ayuk coming, and just Deebo Samuel elevating to what he is.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I love to see it, and he's doing it with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah,
imagine when Trey Lance
good last week.
He did look good last week. He had a rushing touchdown. He actually won me. He helped me win a league. Shockingly, but that's not the norm from Garoppolo.
It's not.
And the fact that Deebo has continued to maintain his relevance. I mean, it helps that George Kittle hasn't been right this season. So we're seeing more Deebo, but also we're seeing that Deebo is a valuable wide receiver. And when they fire Kyle Shanahan this offseason, possibly because it's a mess.
Wow.
Dude, if I was Jed York, I'm talking to my GM. I'm talking to John Lynch about moving on from Kyle Shanahan because it's kind of a mess, and they really haven't. I don't like it.
All right, definitely a debate for a different podcast.
Yes, but I'm not. Deebo Samuel's surprising because I didn't see anything in that offense really being fluid or relevant because it seemed like such a mess. Yet here we are, and Deebo Samuel quarterback proof when he's healthy? Might be.
He might be. We'll see what happens with him, guys. We were all three split on this decision, so I did go to our graphic designer and video editor, Third and Short, to split the decision. He went Cordell Patterson, so he will get the award for the biggest surprise of the first 8 weeks of the fantasy football season. As we said, a free RB1 for nothing. For nothing.
Yep, for nothing.
Cordell Patterson, guys. All right, let's go ahead and move on to comeback fantasy players of the first 8 weeks. Guys, this has got to be probably my favorite segment just because, we're all about the comeback stories here at IBT. So let's go ahead and fire up our nominees for comeback player of the midseason.
Here are the nominations for comeback fantasy player: Matthew Stafford, Leonard Fournette, CJ Uzomah, AJ Green.
All right, guys. So comeback fantasy player, Matthew Stafford, obviously has not been fantasy relevant in a couple years. He's been a streamer at best, but been injured a lot with the Lions, just, behind a bad team lately. So we hadn't been playing him. He's QB3 this season. He was going QB10 or later in most drafts. So that was great to get Matthew Stafford at a great discount. It's been great to see him and the Rams do so well. Just love to see it. My guy, Leonard Fournette, is also on this list. You guys know, I've been like, I was never really a Leonard Fournette guy, honestly, until like the playoffs last year. I just saw something different. I saw like a different edge, and we even heard a story, some rumors this offseason that Bruce Arians actually had a conversation with Leonard Fournette mid-season last year and said, I can either cut you or you can get your shit together. And Leonard Fournette got his shit together, guys, and he's been the RB12. He's 8th in RB in targets right now. Like, he's just been a machine, taking over that backfield, and you got him for a 5th or 6th round price. So that's been great to see.
He was the RB. So per Fantasy Pros consensus ADP in 2021, he was being drafted as the running back 33.
Yeah. Yep.
He was going behind guys like Chase Edmonds, Gus Edwards, Javonte Williams, Damian Harris, Raheem Mostert, Mike Davis, Myles Gaskin.
Yeah. We'll talk about some of our best calls later on. I'll talk more about Lenny, but no, I agree. He was ranked way too low. Yeah. I was way higher on consensus than him, and almost had to check myself a couple times, before we put out our draft guide, because I felt so, insanely high on him. But he's been fantastic. It's great to see him. It just proves though what a winning culture can do and what a guy like Tom Brady can do for someone's career. So that's been great to see from Leonard Fournette. Other candidates, guys, CJ Uzomah for the Cincinnati Bengals tight end. He tore his ACL last year as well. In addition to Joe Burrow, he hasn't been crazy great this season, but he's tight end 10. He's had some really big games, week winning games if you happen to play him those weeks. And, if you are in a 12 or 16 team league, you could be relying on him moving forward. So CJ Uzomah, great, just a great story for modern medicine and what it can do for you. And then AJ Green, guys, wide receiver 31. I think it's safe to say we all kind of wrote off AJ Green coming into the season. I did. And, he probably could even be higher than wide receiver 31 if he would have turned around on Thursday night.
I'm surprised at how much they've used him, given DeAndre Hopkins, Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk. But when he's healthy, we've always known this about AJ Green. When he's healthy, he's elite. It's just been staying on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
It's been nice for Kyler to kind of have a different, just a big body out there that he really hasn't had in recent years. And I definitely think AJ Green is he didn't have a great game on Thursday. Obviously had, the game losing, not turning around and catching that ball to potentially win that game. I would maybe be honestly acquiring him low. Honestly, I think he's a high-end wide receiver 3 at this point, especially in that Arizona offense, depending on Kyler Murray's health.
Of course. He was being drafted as the wide receiver 66.
Okay. Okay.
Just-
Wow.
just-
yeah. Just for
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Just for reference. That's all.
So, guys, you know who I'm going with for the comeback fantasy player of the year. I'm going Lenny Fournette. Any argument from either of you guys?
No, I'm going him.
Absolutely not. We all thought he was dead, and
Yep.
here he is
Yep.
flourishing, and he looks good.
Yes, sir. Playoff Lenny, baby. About to call him regular season Lenny after this one.
Right?
Love to see it, guys. We do have one more final category here for our midseason awards. None other than the breakout player of the first half of the season. But we changed it. We put our spin on it. Breakout player here to stay. Someone we expect to continue this breakout, not just through the next couple of weeks, but throughout the fantasy football season and possibly throughout their career. So let's go ahead and introduce the nominees for the breakout player of the first 8 weeks of the season.
Here are the nominations for breakout player here to stay: Marquise Brown, Michael Pittman Jr., Jalen Waddle, and Tony Pollard.
All right, kind of a variety of players here, guys, for the breakout player here to stay. Obviously, Marquise Brown, he's been sensational. Wide receiver 6 on a points per game basis for the Baltimore Ravens, really taken over this season. I think he's the definition of a post-hype sleeper, really, when you think about it. Had a lot of hype coming into year 2, did not deliver, delivered here in year 3. Obviously, Nate's guy, Michael Pittman. Nate had one of those of you new to the show, Nate had one of the hottest takes all off season. He called Michael Pittman being a wide receiver 1, was taking him very early in some dynasty drafts I was in. And right now, Michael Pittman is he's a wide receiver 1. So there you go, Nate.
Well, he's Wentz's favorite target. Wentz has loved him.
And the talent is undeniable. The dude is just doing things. Like some of his touchdown catches, it's like
alpha dog.
Alpha.
Yeah.
And T.Y. Hilton being back hasn't mattered, even when he's been healthy.
For the 6 quarters he's been healthy, yeah.
For the 6 quarters he's been healthy, which
but Michael Pittman's been insane. Just mossing people. It's been great to see. Carson Wentz has really relied on him. Kind of reminds me of Alshon Jeffrey in his glory days. Jalen Waddle, guys, he's a rookie and definitely someone I wasn't expecting to break out, and he's been wide receiver 26. One of the lead leaguers in targets right now. They probably want to get the ball to Will Fuller and Devontae Parker, but they just haven't been on the field to stay healthy. So he's been a great candidate for a breakout who could possibly stay around for the second half. And how about Tony Pollard, RB30, guys? And, that's RB2 in the Dallas system.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Pollard.
Tough one.
Yeah, this was a really tough one. I like Tony Pollard.
Me too.
I'm fading Zeke.
Yeah.
It seems like Dak and that offense runs better when Pollard's more involved.
Mm-hmm.
Personally,
are you guys I know we're more of a redraft podcast, but do you have any intel or any thoughts that maybe Pollard after this contract year's up, he could maybe go somewhere else and possibly be a starter in the league, or do you see him just more of a good number 2 slasher type of back?
I see this situation in Dallas shaping up to a Kamara Ingram type situation in Ingram's first turn in New Orleans, where they were both fantasy relevant. Ingram got the majority of the touches, carries. Kamara was primarily a receiving back, but still got touches in the running game that made him ultra relevant. That's it. I think Pollard's more of the receiving guy that gets some of the running work, and Zeke transitions to more of the running guy in that offense. And I think that he stays in Dallas with Dak and remains relevant for fantasy purposes for the next, 5-6 years.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah. This Dallas team is about to, it's going to be weird for the next 3-4 seasons, how good they're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, I think my vote would probably have to go for Hollywood Brown. The different routes he's been running this season has been great to see. We often saw him always kind of playing the outside. He's been shifted in the slot a little bit, but playing a little bit X and Y. That's been really nice to see. And just his route running has been so much more crisp. He has separation all the time. And, outside of a couple drops, he could be probably even maybe a little higher on this list. And like, I know Rashad Bateman's coming back, so obviously that puts into question whether or not he's here to stay. But I just think he is. I think with the way the Ravens are shaping out this year, we've talked about it on the podcast a lot and just in our columns in between media. But the Ravens are a passing team now. They kind of have to be with the loss of Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Justice Hill, all those guys. So I think Marquise Brown, he's a wide receiver 6 right now. I think there's a good chance he finishes maybe not as a wide receiver 1, but very close. I think definitely top 14. Who do you guys have here for breakout?
I think he ate a slice of humble pie after last season, and I think that he's working more on himself as a team player rather than being Hollywood Brown. And I like everything you said. For me, I'm probably going to stick with Pittman on this one just because of everything that we talked about.
I'm in the same camp. I like Hollywood. I think that Rashad Bateman kind of eats into that conversation of him being wide receiver 1 moving forward past this season. Michael Pittman, however, is the alpha in Indy. And whether it's Carson Wentz at quarterback or whoever they end up bringing in next season, if they move on from Carson Wentz, Michael Pittman is going to see the lion's share of targets in that offense, and he's going to see the red zone work, and he's going to continue to eat. Like, it's just he's the wide receiver 10 so far this season, which people called me crazy for saying he could finish in the top 10 of wide receivers.
Yeah.
Now I know we're only halfway through the season, but Michael Pittman is a stud.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to change unless there's an injury.
I think he only moves up. I think we talk at the end of the season, he's between 5 and 7. Somewhere in that range.
Okay, I don't know if I'd go that high, but I'd definitely say somewhere between 12 and 15. Like, I mean, we know there's no Paris Campbell probably moving forward the rest of the season. Nope. He's likely out. I don't think T.Y. Hilton's going to be a factor. He can't stay on the field. I think he left again with another injury this week. And outside that, they have the spirit of Jack Doyle and Mo Alley Fox, who put up a donut here last week. So, I mean, they need to lean on their best players, and that's obviously Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor. So, I mean, I'm not going to fight you guys any longer on this. I will give it to you, Nate. The breakout player here to stay for the first 8 weeks of the season is none other than Michael freaking Pittman, y'all.
Michael freaking Pittman.
All right. Guys, we appreciate all the insight here for the midseason awards. We do have one final segment here. We're not going to let you go quite yet. We're going to put a little more fantasy football in your night. That's going to be our sure thing sleeper of the week. Guys, this is presented by Stephen Quality Barbering Services. If you guys haven't checked out Stephen's Quality Barbering Services yet, I highly recommend them. They're up in Kerwinsville, PA. So if you're from Center County, PA, Clearfield County, PA, Jefferson County, really anywhere in central to western PA, I highly recommend Noah Stevens and his barbering services, guys. He's going to hook you up with a quality haircut for a quality price. And you have a quality conversation, just a quality experience along the way. If you want to get booked with Noah, we have the holidays coming up, guys. I know you want to look fresh. I have a wedding coming up this weekend. I'm actually heading up to Noah's tomorrow to get trimmed up a little bit. So, guys, make sure you go to stevens-quality.genbook.com. Book your appointment. Get looking fresh today, guys. Appreciate our friends over there at Stevens Quality Barbering Services. And let's go ahead and head into our final segment of the evening, Sure Thing Sleeper of the Week.
It's the Sure Thing. Sleepers of the Week.
Man, that brings some vibes back because we're definitely getting into the colder part of the fall here in PA. Like, we got like highs of 50s this week. How are you guys like handling it out there? What's the weather been like?
We had snow yesterday. Jackson kept running around saying, it's the beginning of the holidays.
Oh.
The beginning of the holidays. So,
what was the high today?
It was like 41, I think, was the high today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to wonderful Colorado. Everybody wants to live here.
It was almost 80 last week and then snow today.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The joys, guys, of weather. We are going to make it a little bit better for our audience out there tonight. We do have some Sure Thing sleepers of the week. Those new to the show, this is our segment to kind of just give you some players who are either maybe possibly out there on your waiver wire or they're your end of benches, and you can maybe have some confidence heading into week 9 here. Definitely a pivotal point in the season. Like, really, this is kind of the part in the season where I feel like you either have a good team in your league or you kind of know you don't, or you might be on the cusp. So we're gonna help you guys get over that hump. Jen, why don't you kick us off with your Sure Thing sleeper of the week?
Oh man, this kind of actually like makes me want to throw up in my mouth a little bit, but I'm going Boston Scott. Like he burned me so bad last year, but like,
Yeah,
oh man, heading into week 9 against the Chargers, the Eagles are going to have to run the ball. Like period, end of sentence. We all thought Kenneth Gainwell was going to get the majority of the carries, but Hurts leaned primarily on Scott during big plays last week. So I don't remember what he's rostered in the majority of leagues right now, but
It's
likely,
like 5%.
yeah, likely he's out there. Miles Sanders is out, so Boston Scott's going to continue to get the carries until Sanders gets back. And I mean, really, he's a 1 week pickup. Like, do not put all of your eggs in the Boston Scott basket because it's not going to work out for you. But this week, I feel like he might be able to do something against the Chargers. You know, give you some good yardage, maybe even a touchdown.
Well, we haven't seen the Chargers secondary really falter at all. They've been pretty strong lately. The Eagles passing game has kind of been, we haven't heard from Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor in weeks now.
So
Dallas Goedert's hanging on by a thread, it seems like. So I definitely agree. I mean, this running game, the Chargers, they give the most fantasy points to opposing backs. So, I mean, I think it's wheels up for Boston Scott here, unless Nick Sirianni pulls a fast one on us again here.
But for 1 week. 1 week.
Yeah, 1 week. 1 week, yes.
He's not a hot take for the rest of the season.
No. I think what's interesting, though, is that he split carries almost evenly between Gainwell, Howard, and Scott, but Gainwell didn't see any of the red zone work. But Howard and Scott
all season there too, yeah.
I know, which
the
is
majority
crazy.
of his work at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Yep. I love this call. I love it. I'm all about it.
Well, you wrote about him this week too. So.
I did. True.
Of course.
So obviously I'm all about it.
It sucks when we have independent thoughts about the same person at the same time.
Yeah. Nate,
but good.
Who else are you all about this week, brother? Who are you taking the shore with you?
So this one kind of makes me want to puke a little bit in my mouth as well. But situation dictates weird things sometimes. And with the injuries we're seeing in the league, like schemes change, focus on players changes. Mark Ingram. So I referenced this a little bit earlier in the show where the good old days of Ingram and Kamara, where it was Ingram ran the ball, Kamara caught the ball, and then they kind of like, you saw some crossover here and there, but they were both fantasy relevant. I remember Jen winning some matchups because she had Mark Ingram as her running back, even with Kamara in New Orleans, because he was putting up points. Jameis Winston, done for the season. He's gone. So now we're looking at Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill in some sort of mix, depending on Taysom Hill's health. He's still in concussion protocol after 2 weeks, which is concerning to me because it's kind of like DeAndre Swift last season where he just stuck in concussion protocol forever.
Yeah.
And he
it's
came
likely
back
he's going to play this week, though.
It's likely he will. But if you remember when DeAndre Swift came back from concussion protocol, he was wonky for like 2 or 3 weeks. There was a lot of questions as what's wrong with him. Maybe that's similar with Hill. Maybe it's not. Probably doesn't matter. Mark Ingram's going to get the ball. They need to use Mark Ingram.
Yeah,
they need to.
They do.
And he looked last week, this past weekend, he looked like a new man back home in New Orleans, excited. If you saw the locker room celebration after the game, the video of that, the most impressive part, obviously, being Jameis Winston medicated through the roof, dancing with his crutches. But Mark Ingram was a huge part of that. He's happy to be home.
Yeah.
He's ready to be home. And now he might just ball out the rest of the season because this New Orleans team is a contender. They're only a half game out of leading their division behind Tampa Bay. They need Mark Ingram to ball out, and that's what he's there for. And he's a guy that I'm confident rostering rest of season and rolling out every week because it's going to be there. Once they get him rolling in this offense, which I think will be next week, you're going to want to have him, especially given the running back landscape right now in fantasy football.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm comfortable, saying I'm going to roll him out every week after this, but I mean, I'm definitely intrigued this week. Obviously, it's a pretty good matchup against Atlanta. Like you said, obviously they can't really air it out with Taysom Hill or Trevor Siemian. We don't know the status of Michael Thomas. That's the other thing, guys. I mean, I think long-term wise here, Mark Ingram's definitely interesting, like Nate said, just because I think it's a similar situation to, the lack of Calvin Ridley in Atlanta right now. Cordell Patterson's going to have to play more receiver. I think Alvin Kamara is going to have to play more wide receiver. It's just how it's going to stack out. We know the boys are back, man. I'm excited for Mark Ingram here, Nate. I think it's a nice call here.
And the energy is it's just shifted. It's shifted in New Orleans 1,000%. And then, like you said, going up against Atlanta, who's now out Calvin Ridley, it's not looking good.
That's a big move by Sean Payton and just New Orleans in general to admit all right, maybe we shouldn't have let Mark Ingram go a couple years ago. Let's bring him back in. Let's, I like that. I like that personally. I think that speaks volumes to this organization.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
All right. And my final sure thing sleeper of the week, guys. Week 9, critical week for you. Someone that I'm comfortable throwing in is a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 flex. What you need, my guy Hunter Renfrow. Obviously, we haven't really talked about it yet today, guys, but Las Vegas, the news out of Las Vegas earlier today, Henry Ruggs was involved in what seems to be a fatal car accident. He was luckily survived the accident, but is going to be likely charged with a DUI, leading to a fatality. So, I mean, I don't think there's really any other way to say Henry Ruggs' future in the NFL is very grim right now. I think obviously Las Vegas has to pivot. We haven't seen a lot of production out of guys like Darren Waller this season. Bryan Edwards has kind of been up and down, been an overtime hero nonetheless, but still up and down. I think this opens up the door for Hunter Renfrow. I mean, he's wide receiver 36 with a bye. So, definitely competing for mid wide receiver 3 numbers right now. And in the wake of this Henry Ruggs news and in the wakes of just the matchup coming up here, I think Henry Ruggs is a really good option here in week 9.
I love Hunter Renfrow this week. Sans Ruggs, Bryan Edwards hasn't done much. I think it also means that Darren Waller is going to start getting more involved in the offense. They're going to need to lean on him a little bit more. But Hunter Renfrow has been solid anyway.
Yeah, there's only been 1 week that I didn't love his performance, and that was week 6 against Denver. I mean, otherwise he's been solid. I love this.
Yeah. No, it's a good call.
And it's the Giants this week. I know the Giants kind of kept Patrick Mahomes in check, but I think that's more of an issue with the Chiefs.
Agreed.
We saw Tyreek Hill have a lot of receptions. We saw Cooper Kupp go 3 weeks ago go nuts against them. Similar type player, obviously probably more talented than Hunter Renfrow, but Cooper Kupp went ham against him, slot player. We've seen the Cowboys wide receivers all go ham against him for touchdowns. So, I mean, they have to lean on someone here, whether it's Kenyon Drake or whether it's Cooper or whether it's Hunter Renfrow. I'm not 100% sure, but we know he has a floor, and I think the ceiling comes and matches it this week as well.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love it.
Guys, any final thoughts, messages of advice, whether lifestyle related, fantasy football related, as we head into week 9 here, guys? Pivotal part of the season, and holiday season's right around the corner too. It's getting a busy time in our lives as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
nothing to add. Stay warm for those of us in cold climates.
Buy warm. Go to Costco, buy warm clothes before they're sold out, folks.
They're on sale right now.
Yeah. I just want to say, be smart. Take care of the people around you. Enjoy the holiday season because it's an awesome time of year. You get to be all warm and cozy and drink cider and light fires and have fun. We're all supposed to, what's the point of being here if we're not having fun, right?
Great. We're here. We're put on this earth to enjoy life. Enjoy it.
Have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I love that, guys. I'll just echo what you said. And let's have fun in fantasy football too, because yes, there have been so many wild cards. We're going to continue to get hit by curveballs this year, but we're going to have fun along the way. We're here every Tuesday night starting at 9:30 if you want to catch us on the live stream edition. And, every Wednesday as well, we have the audio version coming out. Come hang out with us. We got content in between media coming out 7 days a week. So we're here for you, whatever you need, lifestyle, fantasy football related. Jen, Nate, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Thank you to all our awesome audience members out there as well. Guys, for Jen, Nate, I'm Seth. We'll be back next week. Keep it in between until then.
The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
The one thing that really sets us apart here is we're not afraid to talk about other things that maybe aren't super fantasy related.
Do what you can to become